Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
The Father Joe podcast is proudly supported by Houghton McInerney Star Lincoln on 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield. The all-new 2020 Lincoln Aviator touches down this week at the Los Angeles Auto Show. The luxury SUV that lets you scan the road ahead for uneven pavement and allows you to drive away using your smartphone instead of a key. They got it right. And the 14th edition wish list sales event is going on now and runs through January 2nd, 2019. You can lease the 2019 Lincoln MKC for only $257 a month and the stunning new 2019 Lincoln Nautilus for only $387 a month. See Star Lincoln for details. Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield. Experience the Star treatment. Boy, I'll tell you, feedback.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, like I am reading about, like you are reading about. We have had a ton of action on Advent, more than I ever expected.
Wow.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful season because it's a season that's not penitential. It's interesting because people wear violet in the United States.
Yeah.
People assume it's like Lent. Well, it's not like Lent. It's really joyful anticipation, and anticipation involves preparation of the self by self-examination and things of that sort.
And you mentioned as well, it's also a time to sort of, I don't want to use the expression reintroduce ourselves to, but pay attention to the second coming of Christ.
Oh, definitely. Now, for example, we speak about it's a season of hope among its beautiful aspects and so on. Quiet aspects. It's a quiet preparation. It's interesting how that counteracts the noisy frenzy that goes on in preparing to buy gifts and putting up trees and lights and so on. And yet, Advent counteracts it beautifully as a calming effect, because it really is the idea of hope. If you look at the Old Testament, right now, during Advent, you hear a lot from the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah speaks in such a way that it dreams big because it hopes big. It looks forward to a time when all things will be beneficial to the people. There will be healing, there will be happiness, there will be, how shall I put it, there will be the whole idea of people getting along together, peace in the world, and all of these other things.
Yeah.
So they're looking forward to a time of, they're having hope for something big. Traditionally, when you look at the Christmas cards that you get, very often you see the lion and the lamb sleeping together. The opposites. It's a time when we want to get rid of racism. We want to be able to love one another in a world that's made up of so many different ethnic groups. The tremendous diversity that we enjoy in the United States, at least, is to me mind-boggling. And yet, we still have these little, individual
pockets that we appear, or at least seem to be attempting to improve.
Oh, I hope so. I think so.
Yeah.
But you see, this is what Isaiah is talking about.
Right.
There's going to be a time when the lion and the lamb lay together. When the different animals, he beautifully picks out the animals that can live together in peace that ordinarily we think is impossible. Well, he looks at that time. This is why I say, as human beings, without hope, where would we be? I think it would be a tragedy.
I'd be really hurting.
Hurting.
I would be lost.
I think all of us can. I think we would all be lost because without hope, there's nothing else left but despair. Okay, so without hope, we would have despair, looking towards the end of life as much as we can instead of looking to a bright future. Well, I think innately, the people of the Old Testament saw this as a very important aspect. Now, they probably did not know they were writing about Christ. But if you read Isaiah, there will be a time when there will be a king who will rule with justice and peace. And he will be in the line of David, and it says so even. So he'll be in the line of David. Who else but Jesus Christ are they talking about? And of course, the fruition of that hope comes in Jesus Christ. We still need hope, there's no question, because it's still the work of the people's ideas of the Old Testament isn't over. It still needs help. We still need help in learning how to live in peace with one another. We still need help with feeding the hungry. We still need help with all of these things. Right. Now, Jesus Christ came to offer some solutions, but one of the things Jesus did, he puts the onus on you and me as human beings. He started it off. When Jesus walked the earth, well, basically, he wanted to get rid of sickness. Basically, he wanted to feed the hungry. Basically, he wanted to heal those who were crippled and hurting. He did all of those things. But then he left it to us human beings to be his hands and feet for the future, so that we could also do whatever we can to promote justice, to promote peace, and all of these other things. So we can see that hope is very important during Advent, and it leads us to Jesus Christ's coming, which we celebrate at Christmas. So Christmas time is a time for celebrating the first coming of Jesus on this earth. And we celebrate that joyfully, knowing that we have a God who has become flesh, who is part of human beings, if you want. And so he walked the same earth that you walk and I walk. And so it gives us hope for us to enter into the divine life, into eternity. But it's also a time for us to take into consideration when we will have that last meeting with Jesus Christ, when he will look at us and say, what have you done with what I have given you, your talents, your love? So it's also a time, though, when we remember the second coming of Jesus Christ, which is called the parousia, the second coming of Jesus. And that's when Jesus will come to rule heaven and earth, when he'll come to judge heaven and earth. So there are two comings of Jesus that we celebrate, and these are the two that Advent looks forward to. It says we celebrate Jesus' first coming, but we look forward to his coming again.
Mm-hmm. No, here's what I was thinking while you were talking about that. First of all, we haven't gotten it right yet, so it seems that we have to recycle each and every year, and we keep getting a little better, a little better, a little better each and every year. Or at least we should be trying to. It seems to me as well that as Catholics, we all came with a manual inside, okay? But like all of us, especially men, we throw the manual away. I don't need that.
That's right, I can
could
do
put
it.
this together by myself. And then all of a sudden, ultimately, what do you end up doing? You go back and find the manual and go, oh, that part. Oh, yeah. I didn't think it was important. Well, guess what? It was important, and you're going to need it now. So that's my analogy, and I hope it works a little bit. But that's basically what I'm saying when we're going to keep doing it until we get it right.
I think you're right. And I look at, too, that if we're looking forward to his second coming, I think there's also a third coming. Jesus comes into our lives at different times. Mm-hmm. But
I agree with that, by the way.
When he comes to us face to face at our death, right now, Advent says there's a warning. You better be prepared. So how do we prepare? We prepare by putting into action what we already know, what we're supposed to do. We know it, but sometimes we don't follow through. And so we want to put into action all of those good things that we want to do. So being prepared means looking at yourself, seeing what you could get rid of so that you would allow Jesus to come into our hearts, because he ain't going to come into a crowded place, you know?
Right.
So the thing is this, we have to open our hearts to him, and then he could come to us in a beautiful way.
A little self-examination is basically what you're saying to do on a
You got it.
daily
You got
basis.
it. Yeah.
And I think, isn't that possibly part of the entire purpose of going to Mass?
Well, going to Mass, going to confession.
Right.
I always think of people going to confession. There's two benefits. There's a psychological as well as a religious benefit.
Yeah.
But by the same token, the reason we do go to confession so we can become better. It's not so much that you don't want to dwell on the evil things that happen in our lives, but we're able to talk about them and then do better on that. So being prepared means, as you say, Ken, self-examination, but then putting into action what we know will make us better.
Yeah, and I think you can always find a couple of things on that list that you can always do better. You know?
Oh, always.
I mean, unfortunately, the list is you never go, well, I'm done here. I'm perfect. No. I'm absolutely perfect. I'm going straight to heaven. Take me now, Lord.
I would love it, but it isn't so.
That's certainly not in my case. It's not going to happen.
But it's interesting, again, that Advent reminds us that there is an Old Testament that points to the New Testament. There is something that follows through, particularly when you read Isaiah.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, and I guess it's because of the fact that we're doing the podcasts, and I'm paying more attention to so many things now.
Sure.
At church, in church, and throughout your daily lives. But I never really thought of the 4 weeks prior to Christmas being such a really joyous yet really important time of the year.
It is, Ken. The thing is this, there's a danger, though, that we get so caught up in the frenzy.
I know. I was going to go back to that.
But go ahead.
I was going to say, and try to avoid what you said at the very beginning, and I like that expression, noise. The noise of, okay, today I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. Post office. Okay, if I don't get this in the mail by then, the hustle and bustle. I got to see if I can. If I get there before noon, I can probably get a parking space.
Yeah.
Noise.
We need to be quiet.
As a matter of fact, this might be a good time of year as well, because I know you like to do it. Do a little meditating.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So we're halfway through at this point. Halfway through. Do you find that people during Advent, how many people would you say go back or throw back to the old tradition of having the wreath with the Advent candles? Do you have any idea of knowing?
I would say a lot of people. I don't know how many that is. A lot do. But don't forget that it's really symbolic. There's nothing religiously oriented about it. It's a nice symbolism to count down the 4 weeks before Christmas. This coming weekend, we'll light the second purple one or violet one. And then the third week is lavender or pink or whatever you want to call it. It's lighter than all the other three because it simply means that Advent is almost over, not quite, and Christmas is near. Now notice in Latin we used to call it Gaudete Sunday.
Yeah.
Gaudete Sunday was a day to rejoice because the Lord is near. And that's why the candle is a different color. And then we go back for the remaining week to violet, and then, of course, the joyful white candles of Christmas and gold candles of Christmas to celebrate the big day.
Yeah, let's get this party started, right?
Yeah, but it's a symbolic thing, a beautifully put together symbolic thing, but it's not necessarily religiously affiliated, but again, it's related to hope because each week we get closer to celebrating Jesus' coming.
I think that's fantastic. And I was just going to say, as we wrap it up, one of the things that we often see, and I remember as a kid, you would see the construction of the Advent candle being done in the classroom by the younger kids.
Oh, sure.
And they make a project out of it.
Yeah.
And that's a good project.
I think it is.
You know what I mean? And that gets them more involved in the lighting of the candles. Kids get excited about doing it because they put that part of it together. So today's prescription from Father Joe Grimaldi is try and turn turn down the volume, tune out the noise, do a little self-examination, and get ready for Christmas and the coming of Jesus Christ?
And move into action.
There you go. Done like dinner, Father Joe Grimaldi, my hero.
Happy to be with you.
All right, we'll see you next time on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. Coming up on the next Father Joe Grimaldi podcast, why do Protestants think the Catholics don't read the Bible?
That's a good one.
For some reason, that's what's coming up. For some reason, we hear the Protestants don't think Catholics read the Bible. Oh, contraire, mon frere. That's next time on the Father Joe podcast. I'm Ken Calvert along with Father Joe Grimaldi. We'll see you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.